When you look up at the moon, what do you see? A peaceful, calming light in the night sky, right? We see a man on the moon, a friendly face looking down on us. We write poems about it. But what if you didn't see a friend? What if you saw a fugitive being hunted? For the Vikings, the moon was a ticking clock, chased every single night by a giant celestial wolf. They didn't see a man on the moon. They saw a god on the run. And they knew that one day, the wolf would finally catch its prey. And that day would be the beginning of the end. Their greatest fears weren't hiding in dark forests or lurking beneath the waves. They were playing out in plain sight, right above their heads. In the vast and terrifying Norse cosmos, the moon wasn't just a hunk of rock. It was a god named Mani, and his life was one long, panicked chase. Imagine his journey every night. Not a calm procession across the sky, but a desperate sprint for survival. Behind his light-bearing chariot, gaining on him with every passing hour, was a predator born from pure cosmic hate. That predator has a name, Hati Rovidnison. It's a chilling name that tells you everything. Hati means he who hates or enemy. And he isn't just any wolf. He's a warg, a supernatural beast with a single terrible purpose. His entire existence is dedicated to chasing Mani across the sky until he can finally sink his fangs into the silver orb and swallow it whole. For the Norse people, this wasn't a myth to explain the moon's phases. It was a literal, high-stakes pursuit happening every single night. The moon wasn't waxing and waning. It was narrowly escaping, over and over, from the snapping jaws of doom. And the question that must have haunted them was terrifyingly simple. What happens when the chase finally ends? So where does a monster like Hati, a wolf strong enough to hunt a god, even come from? He's not some random beast. He comes from the most infamous family in all of Norse mythology. His last name, Rovidnison, tells us his father is Hrorvigner, or the famous wolf. And that's a title that belongs to none other than Fenrir. Yes, that Fenrir the giant wolf, son of the trickster god Loki. The beast the gods of Asgard feared so much, they had to bind him with an unbreakable chain. The same Fenrir who is destined to break free at the end of the world and eat Odin himself. Hati is a chip off the old, apocalyptic block. His origins are just as grim. Ancient poems in the Poetic Edda speak of a place called Jarnvir, the Ironwood. It's a dark, cursed forest where a giantess raised Fenrir's monstrous children, all of them born in the shape of wolves. Hati was one of these sons, and he wasn't alone. He has a brother, Skoll, whose name means treachery. While Hati hunts the moon, Skoll has the equally terrifying job of chasing Sol, the goddess of the sun. Let that sink in for a moment. The two things that give us light and mark our time, the sun and the moon, are each being hunted by a monster from a family destined to kickstart the apocalypse. This isn't a simple story of good versus evil. It's a countdown. For the Vikings, the sky wasn't a peaceful map of the stars. It was the hunting ground for the end of the world. This was way more than just a scary story. The Vikings didn't really separate myth from reality. The chase between Hati and Mani was their working theory of everything. It was their astronomy and their religion, all rolled into one terrifying narrative. And they saw proof of it happening. Think about what they saw during a lunar eclipse. For us, it's a neat, predictable alignment of the Earth and Moon. For them, it was a moment of pure, heart-stopping terror. That growing shadow wasn't a shadow. It was Hati's jaws, closing in on Mani. And when the moon turned a dark, blood red, it's easy to imagine them seeing that not as scattered light, but as blood from the wolf's near-fatal bite. It was proof that the prophecy was real, and the end was one step closer. In the face of this cosmic horror, they didn't just stand there and watch. Many scholars believe people would erupt into a frenzy of noise-banging shields, blowing horns, shouting and screaming at the sky. They were trying to startle the wolf. to scare Hati just long enough for Mani to wriggle free and continue the chase. And for centuries, every single time, it worked. The moon always came back. But the fear never left, because they knew that one day it wouldn't. We know these details from sources like the Poetic Edda and the Prose Edda, which were compiled by the Icelandic historian Snorri Sturluson. These texts lay it all out: the wolves, the chase, and the fear. If a lunar eclipse was a terrifying close call, what happens when the hunt is finally successful? The answer is Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods, the Norse apocalypse. That chase in the sky wasn't just drama. It was the fuse for the end of the world. The prophecies, as recorded in poems like the Voluspa, the prophecy of the Cirrus, are brutally clear. According to the accounts pieced together from these sources, the end begins when the sky falls apart. Hati will finally catch Mani and swallow the moon whole. At the same time, his brother Skoll will catch and devour the sun. The stars will just vanish. The world will be thrown into a suffocating darkness and cold, known as the Fimbul Winter, a miserable 3-year winter with no summer. That one act of cosmic violence triggers everything else. The world tree Yggdrasil will shake so hard that every chain and bond on earth will shatter. And that means Fenrir, Hati's father, is finally free. Loki breaks his chains. The great serpent Jarmungandr rises from the ocean, poisoning the air and water. The enemies of the gods march from all directions. The fire giants from the south, the frost giants on a ship made from the fingernails of the dead, all with Loki at the helm. The god Heimdall sounds his great horn, Jallarhorn, signaling the final battle. It all starts when the wolf eats the moon. It is the first domino in a chain reaction that ends with the death of gods and the destruction of the world as they knew it. This raises a huge question. Why would you build your entire culture around such a bleak, seemingly hopeless prophecy? Why live with a constant reminder that your entire world is doomed? The answer gets right to the core of the Viking mindset, and it revolves around the Norse concept of fate, known as or Grog. For the Norse people, fate wasn't just a possibility. It was a woven tapestry, an unchangeable reality. Every single thread, from the life of a farmer to the death of a god, was already locked in place. Even Odin, the Allfather, couldn't escape his fate. He knew Fenrir was going to kill him, but that knowledge didn't make him hide. It made him prepare. This worldview wasn't about being pessimistic. It was about courage. If your end is already written, the only thing that actually matters is how you face it. Your reputation, your legacy, was built by running toward danger, not away from it, especially when you knew you couldn't win. So while the fear of Hati eating the moon was very real, it was part of a larger acceptance of a harsh universe. Destruction wasn't the final end. It was just a violent, terrifying, but necessary reset button. Only after the world burned and drowned could a new green world be born from the ashes. The Viking sagas are packed with this powerful mix of terror and courage. Their myths are more than just stories. They're a window into a worldview that is both brutal and beautiful. If you want to explore more tales of gods, monsters, and inescapable destiny, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss our next trip into the past. And let us know in the comments, what other Norse myth terrifies or fascinates you the most? Is it the world-circling serpent Jarmungandr, or the clever deceptions of Loki? So, why were the Vikings so wary of the moon? Because for them, it was never a symbol of peace. It was a hunted god, Mani, running for his life every night from a monster named Hati, whose name meant hate. They believed every lunar eclipse was a close call, a terrifying preview of the end. And they believed that one day, that chase would be over, and the wolf's victory would trigger Ragnarok, the final world-ending battle. The next time you look up at the sky, try to see it through their eyes. Don't see a silent, peaceful guardian. See a desperate survivor in an eternal race. Forever fleeing the shadow, it will one day eat the light. It's a chilling thought, and a powerful reminder that for the Vikings, the apocalypse wasn't some distant idea. It was a constant presence, hanging right over their heads.